Aloha, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. My name is Sprinklebeard, and today we're doing more Evaluate the Epic with the beautiful, the graceful Cyrene. So in terms of design in this game, it's weird that I don't really like the desert in general. Like, it's not something I'm always thinking about. However, I do like a lot of the desert champions that they have in this game. Nero, Soleil, Cyrene, all these champions look beautiful. This champion specifically is a very good example of like fan service, but not being like forced down your throat, right? She looks beautiful and sexy, but she also doesn't look like beyond promiscuous. And for the record, we are horny on main on this channel. This is a good example of you can still look amazing and not have it being forced into somebody's face. Or this is the type of champion where if somebody asks you, hey, what game are you playing? Hey, look at this champion I got. You have no problem showing it off. There's absolutely other champions named Keniza that when you try to show off, hey, what game are you playing? You might be a little embarrassed to try to show off Keniza specifically. So, without further delay, let's go ahead and get into this. So, Cyrene is a cost regenerating champion, and in my play style in a lot of video games or in like games like Magic the Gathering, I absolutely love the concept of you need to play something out early, and the earlier you place it out, the more benefit it offers to your account or your play style. So that is what Cyrene does in this game. As you have her placed out, the longer that she's out for, she will generate you more coins over time. Now, one of the things that Cyrene does need a little bit of a buff on is that right now there is an rare Narvi, a dwarf, who does Cyrene's job a little bit better. However, Cyrene does have epic stats, so her stats are going to be a bit better than Narvi, as well as a different type of buff compared to Narvi. Narvi's buff is an inspiration, which is considered very, very good, but since Narvi's a rare, she's giving off very minor attack stats to everybody. So let's get into evaluating Cyrene. So stat-wise, she's actually going to be on the slow side of things. A lot of her stats are very weak compared to her other fighters. Her defense is a little bit frailer. Her HP is a lot lower than other fighters. But again, she's not meant to be a frontline killer. She's supposed to be a cost generator, that if you protect her, she will end up benefiting you in coin. So one of the biggest things about cost generators in this game, their cost is actually very low. So her being 11 is fantastic. Her attack interval is 2.1 seconds, meaning she is quite quick to attack. However, her rage regen is one of the slower ones in the game at 12. So her basic attack is physical. She deals 50% damage to one enemy 2 times, and this scales from 50%, scaling up to 60%. Her passive is Sharp Sand. So once every 14 seconds, the next attack deals 80% damage to enemies in range every 14 seconds and applies a slow to them. So her slow is only 25%, which is not amazing. However, that is also the difference about her living, is her attacking the target before it gets to her and slowing them down. And then your archers or your mages, having covery fire, blowing up the target. So I don't think that this is necessarily a bad thing, and it does help with her longevity. The other nice thing is it's every 14 seconds. Well, every time you skill this skill up, it goes down a second. So scaling from 14 seconds down to 10 seconds. And then the damage does increase from 80, scaling up to 120. So she's going to do a fair bit of damage along with slowing down the target as they get in range. Finally, her ultimate. This is where her cost regen sits. Restores 12 cost regen immediately and applies a crit rate increase to 2 allies within 2 tiles, lasting for 6 seconds. So the effect duration every time we skill this up does increase. So it goes from this 6 seconds to eventually 10 seconds. At level 4 here, the crit rate increases by plus 10%. So the base is 10% crit rate for 2 allies in range. It scales up to 20% crit rate for all allies in range. And then every time we also level, skill her up, we reduce the cost of her ultimate. So it scales down from 760 down to 680. Now, the reason that this is not super impressive, even though her cost is 12, with rage regen, or depending on how frequently you can get her to attack, because when she attacks, she will gain more rage that way, you do have the potential that she could be a little bit faster or better than Narvi. Narvi has an extra passive that generates her gold every 15 seconds. Otherwise, they do generate the same cost every ultimate. So it's not massively impressive. Dalyn, however, does have the highest cost regen per minute in the game. For most people playing with Cyrene, you would probably play with her for this crit rate so that your early game, her and one other champion probably could crit down whatever gets summoned out, and then she could just last the rest of the game pretty reliably. Cost regenerators are often best in some of your most difficult levels. I don't think you need a cost regenerator every single level. However, if you do feel like you're fighting up a fight, so earlier today we were able to complete Gear Raid 3-19, so the main account is about to get much more powerful very quickly. I had to use a cost regenerator. I ended up using Narvi to increase my tempo. So in the first second or two of the level, I was able to instantly summon out Narvi, or I could use Cyrene in this case. So let's just jump into any level here and we can kind of show that off. Where is Miss Cyrene? Am I blind? There she is. I'm blind. So ideally is in this first second, you were able to summon her out as quickly as possible. Then once she is summoned, you can pretty much summon even some of your highest cost champions pretty quickly. So here we have to wait for her to gain her ultimate, and right now she has 0 gear on because we don't really depend on her for her damage or anything. But as you can see, that cost regen does take a while, but once she gets it, we could get out our other champions in a timely manner, and then it's just a matter of her regenerating all the way back up. So again, her base regen is 12, which is very low. I don't want to finish that level. So rage regen is going to be something very, very useful for Cyrene to be the most benefit for you. Let's go back into her awakenings, because I did forget to talk about Cyrene's awakenings.
You get what you pay for.
So awakenings for Cyrene. Cyrene has some very interesting awakenings. Nothing game-breaking by any means, which is unfortunate. I felt the same way about Dalyn when talking to friends about Dalyn. I still do not have Dalyn on the account. I'm really hoping I get Dalyn, or if there's a 10 times event for Dalyn, I think because she's in my play style, I might invest resources to get Dalyn. I am sad though, because I think Cyrene looks amazing. I would love to play with more Cyrene. Alright, so the crit rate provided by Sand's Blessing now applies to all allies in range. So Sand Blessing is her passive, is her ultimate, where she gives crit rate to 2 people in within 2 tiles of her. Now she just gives it to everybody in range. I don't know what that range is, right? I don't know if that's like all squares touching her, so it'd be 8 squares instead of just 2 squares. It's unfortunately something not necessarily clarified in this game. Maybe if it's within 2 tiles of her, maybe it's 2 in every direction. I hate to say this, I can't really comment reliably on it. Admittedly, I don't really depend on her crit rate in this kit. I care about her giving back the cost, not the crit rate. Next, she would gain 200 attack. This would let her deal a little bit more damage or deal with some of the small fry in certain levels. So in the campaign, Narvi was a very, very useful champion for me. She was often holding her own or killing off like a dog or a skeleton on her own and surviving long enough for me to summon out other things. Sharp Sands has a 20% chance of not triggering its cooldown. So that is her passive where she slows the target and deals some good burst damage to them. So that just randomly, like, 20% of the time not activating the cooldown could lead you to some good reliable damage and let her stay out for a little bit longer. So, like, get the kill quickly so that you're not worried about her dying. Awakening 4, her cost -1. If this was a cost minus, like, 3, I would be obsessed with it. Her cost being -1 just actually puts her at the same level as Narvi. This is a big deal, and then depending on what gear you give her, if you gave her gear that reduced her cost by 1 again, you could get her down closer to 9, which would be amazing. It's just, I wish this was a little bit more, especially with her not generating the most cost or more cost than the rares. There's another rare, Aruto, who also can generate cost, but he comes out into play with a shield on. I hate to say it, I would almost prefer the shielded character that can last a little bit longer than the crit rate character. But maybe her damage is more respectable than I'm giving it credit for. But as a cost regenerator, the numbers don't look impressive. Finally, her ultimate is Sharp Sands applies an attack speed reduction to enemies. So when she does that skill that hits enemies and slows them, she'll also reduce their attack speed by 30. That is very, very good for her longevity. However, again, this is something where the way that I play with my cost regenerators, they're often so far back. They are not usually tanking anything. I have had to do it for certain events. There's times where I've had to use Narvi as like a pseudo tank, but Narvi also produced like tons of money before having to even tank ever. This is one of those things, like, this will help her tank, as in she won't die in the first hit, but the second hit she'll probably die. So use her carefully, but she should perform well. Yeah, no talent to speak of. So, where is Cyrene going to be best at when we start going through the levels with her, right? There's Dalyn, by the way, if anybody's curious who the better version is. And she is also a watcher and a cultist. Yeah, no talent. So, where is she going to be best at? So, when you're going through the campaign, anywhere that you need specific tempo, and she can maybe hold off the very first enemy or 2 enemies. So if you were to get her as like your second or third epic on your account, I could see her being amazing and pulling off some massive work for you. However, by the time I got her, I had just finished like skilling up Narvi, and then when I was comparing the numbers between the two of them, unfortunately this is where Narvi did outdo her. That we regenerate 8 cost for every ultimate, so it is a little bit less than that 12. However, here she's regenerating 3 cost every 18 seconds, or eventually it's 3 cost every 15 seconds, which is an additional 12. So every minute, Narvi at minimum is generating the same cost as Cyrene. And then when she ultimates, she gives an additional 8. So unfortunately, Narvi also has a much lower rage cost, so gets there a lot sooner. But they do have about the same rage regen, so that's good at least. So any level where you need the extra tempo, I have even tried using her in the arena to get out my AoE champions faster and tried to outpace my opponents. At lower levels, this kind of worked. At higher levels, I think the only way it would work is if your champions are guaranteed to win the first like 3 or 4 rounds reliably, so that yes, you might lose round number 1, but then you would have to win rounds like 2 through 4 or 2 through 5 super consistently, because Narvi would give you that advantage that yes, you're minus 10 at the very beginning, but then after like the first 30 seconds, Narvi does ult. That should put you right back up to the same cost as your opponent. So every 15 seconds, you start jumping ahead of your opponent on cost. I don't think this is the most reliable place for her, is the arena, because arena, we do need every piece of our 5 pieces. I definitely feel like when you can bring 10 champions to things like the campaign, to Void, or any raid, to be honest with you. The one exception to raids, I would say Guild Boss is probably the only place I would absolutely not bring her. I'm sorry, Guild Boss and Tide. Guild Boss and Tide, she doesn't really have a place in either of these, because you start off with so much coinage, and then you're not really resummoning a lot during Tide. And in Guild Boss, if you are resummoning, you're losing a whole lot of damage. So it would be very weird if you're summoning out that constantly. Narvi is a combo piece for sure. So if you wanted to play with champions like Titus or Cyrene, Nyx, Maul, champions that cost more than 20 to summon them out, Narvi can help you reach that 20 very easy and very reliable. Cyrene, we're reviewing Cyrene. Cyrene can help you reach those costs very reliably. One of the nicest things about Cyrene is that she actually doesn't require any skill dust to be her effective version.
You get what you pay for.
It is one of those things, though, that as you level her up, you do reduce the skill cost, so that does help you get to those ultimates faster. But she's not reliant like Narvi. I did have to sink in a lot of dust into her, a lot of those blue skill crystals, to get her to the point where she was reliably producing me coin, right? Cost. But in any of the promotion raids, every single one of these promotion raids does have a slot for you where you can summon Narvi out. So it does not matter which level. I keep saying Narvi. We're reviewing Cyrene. I swear we're reviewing Cyrene. Oh, the desert wench. Where are you? She's not already in my team. There she is.
Another fate.
But in every single one of these levels, you can summon her out very quickly, very early. We can put her real far back here so that she's not taking any unwanted damage.
My aim is true. Burning hell awaits you, filth.
Ooh, this feels good with our piercers wearing some of my best gear on this account.
Bleeding evil dry. The weaker lies in wait.
But yeah, as you can see, it's very easy for us to summon out pretty much our entire army
are always ready.
very quickly, and that was only with one of Cyrene's ults, and we have 5 of our members out, 6 of our members out before our opponent had 6 of their members even out. So the name of the game with Cyrene is tempo. It's getting ahead of your opponent. I love using these cost regenerators in a lot of my boss fights. So anywhere in the Void Rift where you're fighting a boss, I feel like getting ahead on tempo matters a whole lot there. Sometimes that character can also take some damage from the rest of the team, or let you summon out like a tank or a healer one minute earlier than you would normally be used to, right? So if you're generating 1 cost per second and you summon out your tank, which costs you 18, but then Cyrene uses her ultimate and generates you 12 right back. Now you're only waiting 5 more seconds to summon out your Vortex healer right behind it. But so yeah, anywhere in the promotion raids, any of the raids, she absolutely performs well. The artifact material raid, again, this could really help you with tempo to get ahead of Salazar and all of his minions. Depending on how you build her, she can potentially hold off some of the lower level of minions. And then obviously as you get higher and higher, you'd park her in the corner somewhere or park her in front of where the slimes will spawn and let her generate you coin and then just kind of delay the slimes long enough for you to kill off Salazar specifically. In the gear raids, I think gear raids and even the resource raids, she's going to be perfectly fine here. It's not that we're depending on her damage, it's her ability to summon out other champions along with her. So any of these places where you need to get ahead of your boss. So I'm going to show off Gear Raid 3, and I'm sorry to do this with Narvi instead of Cyrene, but the concept is here for you guys to watch. Is there's our Narvi out at the drop of a hat. Every time Narvi ultimates, she's going to increase my Eagle's damage. So that is a benefit to playing with somebody that is a cost regenerator, is if you need a way to activate champions like Idril, or have certain champions that take effect when somebody ultimates. Narvi, as we can see with Rage Regen gear on, she's trucking along here. You know, she's generating as much. And every time you see the coins fall off of her, that is her producing me coins and letting me get my champions into position before there's a problem, or let me overwhelm the boss more reliably than what I was able to before.
Bullseye. Vanquishing the
There is an argument that for like Cyrene or Narvi, that why would I want a champion that's not bringing actual like BP to the level, or isn't actually like going to be doing damage. And again, it's all about that tempo. It's about getting ahead of your opponent or getting ahead of whatever they are to generate out. And a lot of the times it is just trying to get there before so I was able to summon out a bunch of champions before that boss ever even appeared. That is what we're going for. It doesn't even matter the level. You can do the same thing in Gear Raid 2. Gear Raid 2 up through 18, I am still using Narvi. Once it gets to Gear Raid 219, I'm sorry, that was Gear Raid 218. I'm still using Narvi as a main resource in that level. Once you get to Gear Raid 2-19, I was struggling a little bit. When I first started playing the game, I loved Nero, but Nero has an obscene cost of 29. So Narvi was letting me get there very early. And I keep saying Narvi, and it's because Narvi is who I used. She's who I gave all my Rage Regen gear to and just made her tanky. And she helped me summon out some of these very high cost champions reliably. All through Void Rift, when I was first playing through the Void Rift, I was using Narvi because I didn't have a whole bunch of legendaries. So getting my epics out into position as quickly as possible was extremely meaningful. What's great is once you notice that you have like 50 coins in spare, just unsummon Narvi or unsummon Cyrene at that point, because you know that you are ahead of the curve and you can summon to react to anything going on in the level. In Gear Raid 1, you have walls that you can hide your cost regenerator behind. I absolutely love this, and I do think that that is maybe why all the cost regenerators seem to have a static buff that they give to teammates as well, so that not only can you use them, they could help the rest of your team do more damage or have a higher impact in some of the levels. Faction Trial. Absolutely, she could be amazing in the basic trial. You getting ahead of the enemy in some of these levels is extremely useful. It's absolutely valuable. One of the best things about Cyrene specifically, and this is probably like the most unsung thing about her, is that she is part of the Watchers. So that gives her one faction that she shares. and then she's part of the cultists as well. So you have two different factions that can benefit from you having her skilled up and giving her rage regen, so that she's generating cost for you to get ahead of some of these faction trials. Again, that is also a playstyle thing, so I don't think everybody's going to love Cyrene the way that I would. The biggest reason I don't love Cyrene, she just generates less cost than Narvi. That is just singularly the only reason that I don't play with her instantly. So let's see, we have about 12,000 HP. So 12, 26, 19. So 12, we would have a much higher HP than the 10 here. 26, we have a lot more attack to work with. And then 19, we'd have a higher defense. So on all fronts, her stat-wise is better than Narvi. Narvi already does cost only 10, though, as a rare, and then generates a little bit more coin than Cyrene does, also for a little bit cheaper on the rage end of things. However, Narvi only gives 10% inspiration. That 5% actually would increase that to 20% inspiration, which makes it kind of impressive. Kind of impressive. But ladies and gentlemen, that is it for Cyrene. I hope that you liked this video. For those of you who like cost regenerators, what is a skill that you would want to see tied to their ultimate or to their cost regen that would maybe make them more interesting for you to play? So one of the most obvious two that I can think of is, instead of them regenerating cost over time the way that they do, like these big chunks of cost, if they just increased your cost regeneration per second, right? So maybe for every 5 seconds, they would generate you 2 to 3 coins. So it just felt like you were constantly getting these big bump ups from summoning them out. The other one would be that if you could steal a coin from your opponent. So let's say in the arena, whenever Cyrene would ultimate, if instead of this crit rate thing, which I think is kind of strange, and maybe it's a lot better than I realize, and I'm like, no, I can just equip my champions with higher crit rate. Imagine if every time she generated 12 coins, she stole just 1 from your opponent, so you would mess with their timing very heavily. It would be a really cool concept. It'd be really cool for an arena-style cost regeneration champion. And obviously, you would also be playing at a detriment. Your champion would not be as strong as all of your opponent's champions, but you would also be putting them slightly behind, right? Like every minute, you would put them 1 more coin behind. So instead of them getting out certain things on timing, at the same time as you would get that very, very minor headway above them. I think it would be amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, if you liked this video and you found it helpful, please hit the like and subscribe button down below. It helps out a lot. If you want to watch the content that we do, or come hang out with us on twitch.tv/sprinklebeard, I stream every day, Sunday through Wednesday, as reliably as I can muster. I work 12-hour night shifts, so unfortunately, sometimes I get kind of goofy with when my stream times are, but those are the days that I stream. So if you're looking for this beautiful face to grace your presence or to interact with me, come hang out. We're all pretty chill people, and we all try to help each other out, and we try not to pick on Crake too much. Thank you very much for watching, but of course, until that next time, ta-ta.